In the chaos of battle, where instincts scream and bullets tear through air, a soldier does the unthinkable. He stops. Surrounded by smoke, noise, and the raw chemistry of fear, he doesn't run, he doesn't shoot. Instead, he closes his eyes and begins to breathe slowly, deliberately. In 2, 3, 4. Hold out. 2, 3, 4. Around him, adrenaline surges, heartbeats race, but his begins to slow. Not because the danger has passed, but because something inside him has shifted. He hasn't frozen, he's focused, and somehow, in the middle of chaos, his body obeys, his mind clears, his hands steady. It looks like discipline, but beneath the surface, something deeper is happening. How can something as simple as a breath override the body's most primal reactions: fear, rage, panic? We tend to think of breathing as automatic, as background, just air, just oxygen. But science is beginning to reveal a hidden truth. Breath is not passive. It is a lever, a tool, a switch that can tap directly into the most ancient systems of the body, regulating heart rate, shifting hormones, quieting the storm inside. And it works instantly. Controlled breathing, as it turns out, isn't just a wellness trend or meditation cliché. It's a biological mechanism with roots that run deep into the nervous system. It calms not because it distracts us from stress, but because it speaks the language of the body itself. And in doing so, it reveals something startling about who we are beneath the surface. If breath can override fear, what does that say about fear? If breath can bring calm in the middle of war, what storm is it designed to tame? This is the core mystery. Why does something as ancient and automatic as breathing hold the power to shape our emotional states? What system does it engage? What secrets does it expose? And could it be that the key to understanding anxiety, trauma, even resilience, has been hiding in plain sight with every breath we take? Breathing is so natural, so constant, that we rarely stop to consider its true nature. It happens whether we think about it or not, automatic, like the beat of a heart or the dilation of a pupil. But, unlike those other bodily processes, breath holds a secret. It is the only function of the autonomic nervous system that we can take control of at will. You cannot consciously slow your liver. You cannot force your immune system to relax, but you can slow your breath. And when you do, everything else begins to follow. Beneath this simple act lies a profound biological truth. Breath is the bridge between the body's automatic systems and conscious control. It is the only lever we can touch, manually, that speaks directly to the brain's deepest regulatory circuits. At the center of this system is the autonomic nervous system, or ANZAN, invisible command center that governs everything from heart rate to hormone secretion. It has two main branches. The sympathetic nervous system is the accelerator, responsible for fight, flight, or freeze. It pumps adrenaline, tightens muscles, and prepares the body for danger. The parasympathetic system, by contrast, is the brake. It governs rest, digestion, and repair. It soothes, heals, and restores balance. Your breath is the switch between these two. Rapid, shallow breaths signal threat and engage the sympathetic system. Slow, deep breathing cues safety and activate the parasympathetic response. With every inhale and exhale, you are sending a signal: stress or calm, alertness or recovery, chaos or clarity. This isn't new knowledge. Long before science gave us names for neurotransmitters and nerve pathways, humans were using breath as a tool for survival and transcendence. In India, yogic traditions developed pranayama, breath regulation practices over 3,000 years ago, believing that life force could be shaped through breath. In ancient China, Taoist breath techniques were central to longevity and health. Buddhist monks trained their awareness on the breath as a path to mental clarity and compassion. Even the samurai, poised between life and death in moments of battle, used controlled breathing to center themselves, slowing their heart rate, sharpening their focus. These weren't just spiritual rituals, they were early forms of biological mastery, hacks into the human nervous system long before we had the words to describe it. Today, in a world grappling with unprecedented levels of stress, anxiety, trauma, and sensory overload, the science of breath is re-emerging not as mysticism, but as medicine. Breathwork is now used by elite Navy SEALs to maintain calm under fire. Trauma therapists guide patients through rhythmic breathing to rewire fear responses. Athletes optimize their breath to enhance endurance and recovery. Children in classrooms are being taught to breathe deeply to manage emotional overwhelm. Everywhere, breath is being rediscovered as a frontline tool for mental and physical resilience. And what's at stake couldn't be clearer. If breath can regulate fear, sharpen focus, support digestion, reduce inflammation, and even affect memory consolidation, then overlooking it is not simply ignorance, it's surrender. To neglect the breath is to give up the only direct access point we have to our most primal systems. It is to forfeit control of the machinery that determines how we react to stress, how we heal from trauma, and how we connect to the present moment. Breath is not just air, it is instruction. And in a world spiraling toward distraction and disconnection, remembering how to breathe may be one of the most important things we can do to reclaim our biology and, perhaps, our humanity. In 2017, a quiet revolution in neuroscience unfolded in a Stanford laboratory. Dr. Jack Feldman, a pioneering neuroscientist, and his team identified a cluster of neurons in the brainstem known as the primal, complex structure previously understood only as the pacemaker of breath. This tiny neural hub, nestled deep within the medulla, was thought to be a mere metronome for our lungs, keeping rhythm so the body could function without conscious effort. But what Feldman's research revealed changed everything. The primal complex wasn't just regulating breath, was directly wired to the brain's arousal centers, including regions responsible for emotion, alertness, and even fear. In essence, breath was not just responding to emotional states, was helping to create them. This discovery turned a century of assumptions on its head. For years, the prevailing belief had been that emotions drive changes in breathing. We breathe fast because we're anxious. We hold our breath because we're afraid. But Feldman's findings flipped the model. Breathing patterns themselves could alter emotional states. It wasn't just, I'm scared, so I breathe fast. It was, I breathe fast, so I feel scared. The breath, long considered a downstream symptom of stress, was suddenly recast as an upstream switch one, with direct access to the mood and chemistry of the brain. This reversal reframes everything we think we know about stress. If the storm we feel in our minds, panic, dread, tension isn't just a reaction to the outside world but partially constructed by how we breathe, then breath becomes not just a response mechanism, but a cause. The body's interpretation of danger might sometimes begin in the lungs. Rapid, shallow breathing mimics what the body would do in a life-threatening scenario. And the brain, observing this pattern, concludes, there must be danger. Anxiety then might not always originate in thought, it might originate in breath. This insight challenges the very roots of how we approach fear, trauma, and mental health. It suggests that before we speak to the mind, we must speak to the body, and the first language we must relearn is breath. As we begin to grasp the power of breath not just as a biological function, but as a tool for emotional and physiological controlled, deeper questions start to rise to the surface. One of the most compelling links lies in heart rate variability, or HRV, a measurement of the subtle variations between heartbeats. Unlike pulse, which simply counts beats per minute, HRV tracks the rhythm of those beats, the flexibility of the heart as it responds to internal and external cues. A high HRV is the gold standard for stress resilience. It means your body can shift gracefully between fight and rest, tension and calm, and breath, especially slow and rhythmic breathing, is one of the most powerful levers for increasing HRV. Each inhale subtly accelerates the heart. Each exhale slows it down. With practice, this dance becomes smoother, more adaptive. It's like tuning an instrument that plays the music of your mood. This also explains why panic attacks, so often misinterpreted as purely psychological, are frequently triggered by shallow, erratic breathing. The breath shortens. Carbon dioxide levels drop. The heart races. The body misreads the signals and thinks it's dying, even when no real threat exists. The breath begins the spiral, not the thought. And this is precisely why breathwork is now being explored as a frontline treatment for trauma, especially when words fail. Talk therapy can be transformative, but trauma is often stored in the body. It bypasses language. People with PTSD, dissociation, or chronic anxiety often report that traditional methods reach a wall until the breath enters the conversation. Breathing gives access to the nervous system's core, allowing healing to begin from the inside out. These aren't just theories. In the real world, breath has become a vital tool in high-performance and high-stress environments. Soldiers use box breathing, a simple technique of inhaling, holding, exhaling, and holding again, each for 4 seconds to calm their systems before combat. Athletes train their breath to manage pain, sharpen focus, and delay exhaustion. Trauma therapists guide clients through paced breathing to anchor them during flashbacks or dissociative episodes. Even addiction counselors are using breath retraining to help manage cravings and restore body awareness. Breath, in these contexts, becomes a form of psychological armor, soft, silent, and powerful. What's remarkable is how often history echoes these insights. During World War II, fighter pilots were trained in covert breathing techniques to prevent blackouts from G-force pressure. Long before that, ancient pearl divers in Japan and the Bajar Sea nomads of Southeast Asia practiced extended breath holds, inadvertently training their vagus nerves, the very nerve that governs calm, digestion, and immunity. They didn't know the terminology, but their bodies knew the truth. Breath was their guide, their edge, their resilience. But as we grow in awareness, ethical questions surface. If breath has this much power, shouldn't we be teaching it as basic health educational alongside nutrition and exercise? Shouldn't children know how to regulate their nervous systems before they're handed diagnoses or medications? And in high-stress professions like law enforcement, emergency medicine, or the military, is it responsible to introduce breath-based training without fully disclosing its depth and risks? What happens when breath uncovers buried trauma or intensifies emotional state in someone unprepared for it? And then there's the quiet, uncomfortable conflict at the heart of it all. Breath is free. It requires no prescription, no pharmaceutical, no insurance plan. It is accessible, immediate, and profoundly effective. But in a healthcare system and a cultural economy that profits from complexity, interventions, and long-term dependency, breath has been easy to overlook. There's no patent for inhaling, no billion-dollar pipeline for exhaling. And maybe, just maybe, that's part of why it's been pushed to the margins for so long. We've treated stress with pills, with distraction, with denial. But breath has been waiting, softly, silently, patiently, not as a miracle cure, but as a biological right ready to be remembered. In 2021, a series of cutting-edge studies added a new layer to our understanding of breath, one that reached far beyond stress relief or emotional regulation. Slow, nasal breathing, researchers discovered, doesn't just calm the nervous system. It enhances the brain's ability to process sensory input, consolidate memory, and even strengthen immune response. The very rhythm of breathing shapes how we experience the world and how our body prepares for it. With every intentional breath, neural oscillations synchronize across key brain regions. Memory pathways are reinforced, sensory signals are sharpened, and deep within the body, inflammation markers begin to fall. The breath, it turns out, is not just a levy, it's a signal. A biological message sent inward, and astonishingly, every system listens. The deeper truth is this: your breath is a language, and your body, down to the level of cells, is fluent. Each inhale is more than errors and instruction. It tells your brain to heighten awareness, to prepare, to be alert. Each exhale is a reassurance, a whisper of safety, telling the heart it can slow, the muscles they can soften, the mind it can release. The nervous system receives these messages in real time, adjusting hormone levels, modulating immunity, and even altering the composition of your gut microbiota. As vagal tone increases with slow, conscious breath, inflammation drops, digestion improves, the body reorients toward health. This is not metaphor, it's measurable biology. And with that comes a startling realization. Stress is not just in your head. It's not merely emotional or circumstantial or mental. Stress is rhythm. It lives in the tempo of your breath, in the cadence of your heart, in the speed of your thoughts. And because rhythm can be changed, stress is not an immutable force, it's a pattern that can be rewritten, one breath at a time. This understanding flips the script on everything we thought we knew about mental health, chronic illness, and trauma recovery. It reframes healing not as an abstract goal, but as a practice of returning to rhythm. Through breath, we don't just regulate emotions, we rewire the systems that produce them. This is the quiet revolution. Beneath the noise of modern life, the body is listening. Every inhale and exhale becomes a choice, to reinforce chaos or invite coherence, to rehearse fear or practice calm. We've searched endlessly for complex solutions, but perhaps the most profound key has been within us all along. Breath is not background, it is code, a language, a rhythm, and in remembering how to speak it, we remember who we are beneath the noise, alive, aware and capable of rewriting even our most ingrained patterns through something as simple and as sacred as the breath. Science now confirms what ancient traditions sensed intuitively. The breath is not just a passive exchange of gases. It's a master switch for the entire human system. After decades of fragmented studies and anecdotal wisdom, we now have hard data revealing the ideal frequency for activating the parasympathetic nervous system. 6 breaths per minute. This golden ratio strikes a perfect balance between oxygen intake and vagal stimulation, helping the body exit states of stress and enter deep physiological repair. Inhale for 5 seconds, exhale for 5, and the body begins to shift. The heart slows, the brain quiets, and the systems responsible for healing and integration turn on. Even more remarkable is what happens when we breathe through the nose. Unlike mouth breathing, which bypasses key regulatory mechanisms, nasal breathing stimulates the production of nitric oxide, a molecule that improves oxygen efficiency by as much as 20%. That means more oxygen reaches your cells, your brain, and your muscles with every breath. This isn't just about feeling better, it's about cellular performance, energy metabolism, and long-term health. Add to that diaphragmatic breathing, expanding the belly rather than the chest, and the benefits multiply. This deeper, fuller breath massages internal organs, enhances digestion, improves cognitive clarity, and promotes better sleep. The body is nourished not just by what we eat or think, but by how we breathe. These findings are no longer confined to yoga studios or mindfulness retreats. Breathwork has entered the clinical mainstream. Pain clinics use it to reduce reliance on opioids. Trauma therapists use it to re-regulate clients' nervous systems after years of dysregulation. In palliative care, where words may fail and pharmaceuticals overwhelm, breath becomes a tool for grounding, dignity, and presence. Neuroscientists are now exploring breath as a non-invasive intervention for depression, ADHD, and even long COVID, tapping into its ability to modulate neural oscillations, inflammatory markers, and immune response. Meanwhile, tech is catching up. A new wave of apps, wearable sensors, and VR environments now monitor and train breathing patterns in real time, teaching users to tune their bodies the same way we once learned to ride a bike. And beneath all this research and innovation lies a deeper reframing, a shift in how we think about control and embodiment. The body is not a machine to be commanded by sheer will or intellect. It's not something you think your way through. It's a living rhythm, one that responds not to logic, but to tempo, tone, and breath. You don't drive your biology like a car. You tune it like an instrument. And the breath is your dial. This insight is radical in its simplicity. You don't have to wait for calm to arrive. You can breathe it into being. You don't have to hope for clarity. You can exhale toward it. Each breath becomes a choice to reconnect with the intelligence of your body, to return to rhythm, and to reclaim power not through force, but through flow. In a world that constantly pulls us out of sync, the breath invites us back into coherence, into presence, into ourselves. A child lies quietly on their mother's chest, the hum of the world fading into the background. There are no words exchanged, no bedtime stories, no lullabies, just breath. Her inhale becomes his exhale. His small chest rises as hers falls. A quiet rhythm forms, not taught, not forced, just felt. In this shared silence, something remarkable happens. Their nervous systems, though separate, begin to synchronize. Heart rate slow, muscles soften. The stress of the day, whatever remained, dissolves into the space between breaths. There is no conscious effort, no instruction, only biology and love, moving together in a forgotten choreography written long before language. This is the quiet genius of breath, the first language we ever spoke. Before we could understand words, we understood rhythm. Before memory shaped identity, breath shaped biology. Even before we learned fear, we breathed safety into being, curled against another's chest. We knew how to regulate without knowing the word regulation. We knew how to return to calm without knowing the concept of stress. Breath carried us into sleep, into trust, into life. And somehow, in the noise and pace of modern existence, we've drifted away from that knowledge. We've filled our days with tasks, our minds with thought, our hearts with worry, but breath has remained constant, patient, unchanged. It waits for us to remember, and when we do, when we pause in the middle of chaos to breathe with intention, we are not learning something new, we are returning. We are peeling back the layers of complexity to find a truth that's been there all along, that our bodies are not enemies to be battled or machines to be optimized. They are ecosystems in search of rhythm, and breath is how we listen, how we speak, how we heal. In the end, we cannot always control the world. We cannot stop the storms, the noise, the uncertainty, but we can choose, in any moment, to breathe within it, slowly, deeply, deliberately. And in that breath, we reclaim something ancient and essential, the power to return to ourselves, to calm, to clarity, to the quiet wisdom we were born knowing and only need to remember. We can't always control the world, but in every moment, we can choose how to breathe within it.